It's a bit of a poison chalice, whoever gets to rule Birmingham.
I was threatened to be beaten up outside of a mosque after Friday prayer.
200,000 migrants in every year.
That doesn't sit well with local people.
So what's your politics?
We're revolutionaries.
Our age, wrote Robert Vaughan in 1843, is preeminently an age of great cities. And it's pretty fair to say that the 19th century was the high watermark of the city in British public life. Bold architecture, optimism, a sense that the future would be better than yesterday, public infrastructure. Cities were beautiful and often central to how people did politics. That was nowhere more the case than here in Birmingham. In the 1830s, you had Thomas Attwood and the Birmingham political unions was a hotbed of radicalism, somewhere where people thought actually democracy might work. And later on in the 1870s and the 1880s, it was widely considered to be the best governed city on earth. However, it's 2026, and if somebody said to you today that Birmingham's the best governed city on earth, I would suggest they need a breathalyzer test and certainly shouldn't be anywhere near a car. Now, you can walk around central Birmingham today. You can see the very modern looking office blocks. You can see the heritage architecture. You can see the paved streets. No tarmac here. Very good. Well done. You see all of that in the round and you might think, well, Birmingham's pretty well run. It's a pretty prosperous place. But it certainly hasn't managed well in recent years. In terms of its public finances, actually it hit rock bottom. It was only brought out of a Section 114 at the start of 2026. That basically meant it was not moving towards insolvency. And that was the result of selling off hundreds of millions of pounds of assets to basically balance the books. Selling those assets, but also laying off lots of staff and also engaging in some pretty brutal attempts at reducing their wages, most memorably, of course, with the Birmingham bin strike.
They are threatening to take 25% of my wage. We already agreed to a £1,200 loss, and now the council have taken £6,200 off me. So I've lost near enough £8,000, and I'm a father of 5.
Incidentally, just weeks before elections here in Birmingham, the council has resolved those issues. Presumably that's the result of a political judgment by Labour HQ number 10. There are local elections this week across much of England, as well as elections in the Senedd and for Holyrood, and that includes Birmingham City Council. The City Council itself is the largest local authority in Europe, has 101 councillors, 49 of which are Labour. That means, of course, it's in no overall control, although it's pretty close. Right now, according to YouGov, there are 6 parties polling between 12% and 21%. Reform, Labour, Tories, Lib Dems, Greens, and of course, independents too. We have a quite unique political situation here in Birmingham. You could see the party that comes first by vote share getting a little more than 1/5 of the vote. Quite extraordinary when you think about it. What that means is that we are right now in arguably Britain's most ungovernable city. We've got one day to ascertain what the hell is going on in Birmingham. Hello, sir. You don't feel like what, voting or talking to us? Or neither?
Neither. To keep reform out is my...
Keep reform out?
Yes, yeah.
And if reform controlled the council here, what do you feel they might do? What concerns you?
They spend so much time on bloody flags and producing division. That seems to be more important to them. I don't have any faith in Patronage and people like that. I think there's only one person he looks after, and it's Patronage.
Conservative.
You're going to vote for the Tories?
Yeah.
How come?
Well, I just admire what they stand for. Independence, financial prudence, looking after yourself, not being dependent on everybody else. Yep, values that used to be quite in fashion back in the 80s and 90s, but sadly aren't now.
May I ask who you're planning to vote for in the local elections in May?
The Green Party, most likely.
The Green Party?
I'm not worried about reform, I'm more worried about the Greens. So, yeah.
Well, why is that?
I don't like what they stand for. Legalising drug use, open borders, being financially illiterate. They've just got ridiculous policies, but nobody seems to be looking at them.
How do you think Starmer's done as PM? Because I presume he didn't vote Labour in the last election.
No.
But has he underwhelmed you? Has he prized you?
It's a disaster, isn't it? This is what you get when you give a lawyer a politician's job.
Can I ask you, you're planning to vote for in the local elections?
Whoever puts the pensions up.
You're from Australia, but you sound like a Brummie.
I am a Brummie. I lived here for 53 years, but I've lived there for 16 years.
You've still got it, haven't you?
I've still got it. I won't lose it.
Has it changed Birmingham since you've left?
Oh, tremendously. I think it's changed partly for the better, but my overall opinion of the city from when I left is that it's not the same.
Is it more divided than it was, do you think, 10, 15 years ago?
Definitely. I'm going to be honest now, and I say I think the white people are the minority now. From when we were here, but you know that's the world's ever changing. You know, I'm a migrant in Australia, and you know we bring 200,000 migrants in every year. That's just the way the world revolves. Whether Britain can afford it, I would like to say.
As long as Labour don't get it.
The boomers, they fucking hate Labour.
I am inclined to go independent.
Independent?
Yeah.
So why you stepped away from the mainstream parties?
Loss of trust, yeah, and things like the international things that they do, on the international scene that I don't agree with. So,
is Birmingham a divided city? Because if you look at the polling, there's 6 parties between 20 and 12%. What does it feel like?
It doesn't feel divided. No, there'll always be people out there who'll try and divide, but for the most part, no, I'll disagree.
If you see something that doesn't look right, speak to staff or text the British Transport Police on 61016.
Why? There's constant talking.
We'll sort it. See it, say it, sort it.
Just constant fucking talking. Okay, try again. Right. So we're now...
If you see something that doesn't look right, speak to staff or text the British Transport Police on 61016. We'll sort it. See it, say it, sort it.
The British Transport Police don't exist. No, they don't exist. We've replaced the BTP with, infinity automated, voice notes. Right, we're leaving behind central Birmingham. If this was the BBC, we would have been parachuted into the city centre. We would have done a Vox Pops at the Bullring, at the station, and we would have left again. And we would have said, this is what Brummies think. But at Novara Media, that's not how we roll. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, this looks amazing. Blimey. So you think Birmingham's too close to call?
Overall, yeah, I think so. If the vote is split in the way that it looks like it's going to be, it is a difficult call to make.
You're saying it's a bit of a mess. These 6 parties polling between 12 and 21%. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. Let's say there's no overall control. It is a mess. Reform and the Greens underperform or overperform. Labour underperform. Independents do quite well. Just a complete chaos. What happens after that?
That's the irony, right? Because some of these people will be forced to work with each other, and that'd be interesting to see. But what's even more interesting is that actually the national commissioners are in charge in the council here. So since the bankruptcy, so there's very little room for them to manoeuvre anyway. They've already signed off the plans and the spending. And so it's a bit of a poison chalice whoever gets to rule Birmingham. And the level of incompetence, it's shocking to even say it, right? But £500 million over was put into the West Midlands Pension Fund, right? That was totally unnecessary. So actually this city was not bankrupt and didn't need to be declared bankrupt. We didn't need to cut the services that we have. We didn't need to have the bin strike that's been going on for over a year here and only has just now apparently been resolved. And it was the incompetence of the local leadership, and they refused to even acknowledge it. So there are solutions. You can get that £500 million, which is not insignificant, to turn things around. But the freedom to be able to do that and to use that money apparently isn't there now because of the way they've set the rules up.
Everybody knows Birmingham is one of the biggest councils in Europe. Labour have had a stronghold over that council for a very, very long time. But in that time, what have they actually done? What merit do they... They're running their entire campaign in Birmingham off vote for us or reform is going to get in. It's all scaremongering. And that is because there is absolutely nothing to show for their time. You have the equal pay claim, which bankrupted the council. We have the failed athletes village. We have the Oracle system, which ended up costing a phenomenal amount of money. And all of these things add up, and people see that. People see that our tax money is going onto their vanity projects, which are bringing no benefit to anyone. For me, a budget sheet is a moral statement of what the council thinks is important, right? The first thing that they cut when they declared bankruptcy was youth services. That doesn't sit well with local people. How are you going to cut £2.3 million from youth services from one of the youngest cities, from areas where there are, Allen Rock's top 10% in the deprivation index UK-wide, and you're going to remove the last remaining youth centre and then still expect people to vote for you?
So why are people fighting so hard for what you just described as a poison chalice? There are canvassers and activists and candidates who are going tooth and nail across the city, 3, 4, 5-way competitions in certain wards. Why?
Almost half the Birmingham kids live in poverty. They're either not eating enough, or some of them don't even have beds to sleep in. So these are real issues. They're not some kind of intellectual, hypothetical arguments. Of course, the easiest thing is to be so disillusioned and feel so powerless that you just let it continue to slide. But that's happened for so long, and we've had the results that we've got. So in a way, I see it as that there is a hope for some kind of change. It's almost like any change at this stage. But I really hope that we see genuinely progressive candidates win, and that in that council house we have those voices loud and we keep a sense of clarity and mission, because that's what this city needs.
You would be characterised by the media as somebody, because you left in 2023 as a Gaza independent.
Yeah.
And actually, I think people watching this might be surprised how on top of domestic policy issues you are. Do you think that the way the media has covered independents on the left who come from Muslim communities, not just from Muslim communities, but who tend to come from Muslim communities, do you think there's a racialised lens with that? And actually,
100%.
100%.
100%. Look, would we be getting called Gaza independents if we were not brown Muslims? No, we wouldn't. As I've just demonstrated, I know about local issues because I've been embedded in the community for a long time, and I've worked at a grassroots level with local people in the community. I'm standing for local issues. I'm not standing on national issues. Do I deny that national and international issues have a trickle-down effect? Not at all. They 100% have a trickle-down effect, and they do impact local people's lives, because we live in this world, and everything that happens has an impact on us on a day-to-day basis. But are we Gaza ticket independent? No, we're not.
So whenever there's large numbers of Muslims in a constituency, we hear this word, biradari politics. What is that?
Biradari just means clan. It's like your wider family. And just by the nature of migration, there's lots of South Asian Muslims, so large families from areas like Mirpur, Kashmir, came over after the Second World War. And within family, there's certain types of loyalty, but especially when somebody's helped you out, and when people came to this country, somebody might have helped with rent, somebody might have helped you to get a job. People then feel they owe each other. So what the Labour Party did pretty early on was co-opt some of those key people, the linchpins in those family networks, and made so they felt a loyalty to the party and to those individuals who could then harvest the vote and say, well, my recommendation is, you could call it an influencer now, my recommendation is that you vote this way.
If we talk about biradari politics, and you said all that stuff, normally on television it would be somebody who's on the right, on GB News. What you're saying is there's some truth to this.
Yeah, I campaigned against it when I stood as councillor here, and we had court cases where it was very clear that people's votes were just taken, and especially women and young people didn't get a say. And it was the Labour Party actually who pushed back against restrictions, because they were the party that were benefiting the most from it. But I think it's helped a complacent culture, just like Labour taking white working class voters for granted.
Are there Labour MPs in the West Midlands today who are MPs broadly because of that system of patronage?
I don't think it's accidental that Shabana Mahmood got selected, given her father was chair of the local party, and I've no doubt there would have had lots of membership that he would have been there because of the relationships over many years. So I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it would be naive to think that that didn't play a part.
despite the verdant settings, we are very much still in Birmingham. We're very much in Ahmed Yaqub country.
We are going to put up candidates in every ward in Birmingham. We are going to launch independent candidate alliance, and all of the candidates will be under that umbrella.
Are you standing in the same party as Ahmed Yaqub?
In short, no. I'm completely independent. He has the ICA. I've been endorsed by him. I've also been endorsed by your party, but we're not on the same platform, not at all.
Nosheen, who we spoke to a moment ago, is standing in a ward where he won big time in the last general election. He came second to Shabana Mahmood. Yes, she won by, I think, 3,000 votes, but he cut that majority down from the tens of thousands. And remember, this is a person who is now Labour's Home Secretary. Now, with people like Ahmed Yaqub, they're controversial. That's beyond any doubt.
Last year, Yaqub apologised for joking about domestic violence on a podcast where he said 70% of hell will be women.
But the publicity, the popularity, his political success can't really be detached from that controversy. He's very, very, very good at getting people's attention.
So if you do have a baseball bat, for example, for a sporting event, then make sure it is clear and you have other equipment with it as well. Always remember, there's a defense for every offense.
One could say that Ahmed Yaqub is like a celebrity in these parts, but there's no like about it. He is a celebrity. However, he's not doing this alone. He's part of a wider project. And we're off to meet both him and his right-hand man, Shakil Afzal.
What the party and the Green Party stands for, our people of Birmingham, whether they're Christian, Jews or Muslims, will not stand with you.
Motin came, Motin probably went into mosques. Zach never came because some people must have seen my videos and know that what he did in London, dancing around with naked men in broad daylight with children watching, will not sit right with the voters in Birmingham.
They're very much a political partnership. And I guess politically they're going to fail or win together. The truth is, we could not come to Birmingham and try and make sense of what is clearly a political system in disintegration without speaking to both of these men.
Everyone on social media, especially the far-right media, were calling me the Gaza lawyer, the TikTok Gaza lawyer. They kept doing it through my elections, both my elections. So I decided after a couple of months to buy this number plate, and I found a beautiful number plate, Gaza Law. It's the closest we can get to Gaza lawyer, so there you go. Remember that.
In 2 weeks' time, you could be very powerful people politically in this city. Where do you think it's going to land on May 7th, May 8th in terms of the results?
In terms of the results on May 7th, for me and Shakil, it's insignificant because what we set out to do, our goal was to get people who have been historically docile from politics, who don't know much about politics, get them involved. And here's a young man, Rehan Abbas, 22-year-old lawyer, who's a candidate for Spark Brook, who's just walked in. Now, if he was with a political party, it would have took him years to get into this position, to get to a position where he's contesting for the local elections.
You're very much reflecting and representing the interests of your community. I mean, most people say it's just democratic, right? And clearly the legacy parties aren't democratic enough. What are you against? Maybe that's a clearer way of understanding, like, the red lines.
One policy we are against that Labour have implemented in the last sort of decade, 2 decades or so, is that policy of nepotism politics in the inner city areas of Birmingham and Midlands, where the father will be a councillor, he'll pass it down to his son, or the brother will pass it down to a brother. And it's been happening in front of our eyes for decades, and that's what the ICA are specifically, categorically against, nepotism. And in our culture, we call it biradari politics. We're against that.
So hold on, you're saying that you're a rebellion, you're a rejection against biradari politics?
Yeah, definitely.
We're breaking biradari politics.
We're breaking biradari politics.
London commentators, Sky News, GB News, BBC, they would say, no, hold on, you've completely shaken up my worldview, because this is people who are Kashmiri, independents. I just thought this was sectarian biradari politics, and you said the complete opposite.
Because that is exactly what has been blighting our communities, where certain families or certain biradaris have had control because the Labour Party has kept our communities docile in politics. Indigenously, we all used to vote Labour. My grandfather used to go, he couldn't speak a word of English, and he'd vote for Labour, and I'll ask him, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to vote. I go, how do you, and one time I asked him, I go, how do you know which one to vote for? He goes, I look for the rows. So our people, indigenous, did blindly follow Labour. And you know, one of the MPs that I spoke to, at the time when he got suspended, Raja Gadzev, and he wanted to stand as an independent in 2019, I went over to his house and I said, okay, Raja, what do we do now? Because I don't know how to campaign, because I've never campaigned. What do we do? He goes, I've never ran a campaign. I looked at him and I said, what? I go, you've been the MP for this area for nearly 28 years. He goes, yeah, no, Shakil, because Central London, Labour, send the leaflets. I then pass them on to the members and I get voted every time. Because, and I quote his words, you can put a donkey up for election and slap a Labour ticket and these communities will vote. Now you can't do that.
But what's the goal? Do you want to have, you know, council majority? Do you want the mayor? Do you want to have 5 or 6 MPs? Is that ultimately the end game?
That's ultimately the end game, absolutely. And you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, what are you going to do with 6 independent councillors, and which you won't have no majority, you won't be able to control. We know this because we're only starting our journey out, and we have to start with something. And if that means having 5, 6 candidates in council who can't probably make immediate change, but they can be those vocal people who challenge the status quo. And there will be other alliances that we could potentially make as well. We were asked a question a few days ago, who would we work with if we, you know, had 10 councillors? And our answer is we would work with anybody.
Just had a very interesting experience. I was outside the masjid on Dudley Road after a Jumu'ah prayer, and I was accosted, essentially, while leafleting, by the vile, bigoted independents. I was threatened to be beaten up outside of a mosque after Friday prayer as I was leafleting. And their main thing that they said, the thing they constantly said, you're the gay party, you support LGBT. Amir Khan directly said to me, you guys support LGBT, that's disgusting. Their leaflets having AI-generated images, and it says, thinking of voting green, think again. The first things are about LGBT stuff. They can threaten me, they can say they're going to beat me up, but I will fight for their minority rights the same way I'll fight for LGBTQ minority rights, because I've seen and learned through reading history and through understanding that the moment you let a government pick and choose, or any group of people pick and choose that one group is suddenly not safe for society and they can be scapegoated, no other minority group is safe.
The same-sex relationship stuff with RSE, there's one reading on that, which is that you want to politically differentiate yourselves from the Greens. It doesn't mean you don't believe in what you're saying, but you're emphasising that because it's clear water between you and the Greens, and maybe they're treading on your toes a bit with the voters that you want to win. Is there truth to that?
Yeah, well, look, the independent movement here was built on truth, and the fact that the Green Party are not understanding that by them putting up candidates where there's independent candidates, they are obviously stepping on our toes, and we are only saying the things that our community wants us to say.
The independents are populists with no policy. Here in North Edgbaston, it's Labour that are the incumbents, but they're talking to the Greens. Why? Because they're threatened by us, because they don't have any vision. Here, we want warmer homes, safer streets, and better communities.
So what's your politics? Because lots of things you guys say, I would say left populism, but then you're saying things that are more socially conservative. So tell me, what is your politics? Because people will say...
what was that video that we seen that day?
So I think we would class ourselves as centre politicians.
Centre politicians.
So you're centrists? That would upset the London media because they say Ahmed Yaqub can't be a centrist.
Why?
Because centrist is Tony Blair, it's David Cameron, it's white.
Not those type of
Not those type of
definitely not.
After May 7th, you might need to be in a coalition with some of these people.
I would refuse to be with... We've spoken about this within the Green Party.
But you wouldn't be in a coalition with Reform, I presume?
Absolutely not, of course.
And you wouldn't be in a coalition with the Independents?
With Ahmed Yaqub's Independents, no. I would not... If a hung... It's looking very likely that Birmingham City is going to have a hung council.
Yeah, no overall control.
Yeah, no overall control. Ahmed Yaqub's independents running in North Edgbaston have shown through their campaigning that they don't want to help North Edgbaston. So if they are going to if I'm asked to work with people who are physically threatening me outside of a mosque, that same group of people, right? Of course I'm going to be not timid, but I'm going to be reluctant to immediately go, yeah, I'll work with you guys.
Who are your heroes?
Life hero has to be the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is our role model, politically passed away or currently.
Anytime.
So Ernesto Che Guevara. Ernesto Che Guevara.
I would have to agree. Look, we're revolutionaries. When we got into this, a lot of people said, what do you want from me? And both of us in our own right got into politics, not because we're career politicians, it's because it banged our door.
Here in North Edgbaston, the people want change. They want a vision, and Labour have failed to do that. Labour haven't even really properly campaigned here. They've just now sent out leaflets.
You say they're not properly campaigned, is that because they haven't got any members anymore?
Probably, yeah. I mean, the Green Party have been taking them, but also I think because arrogance. Labour.
So even now they're complacent, you think?
100. They've been. That's the Labour Party. The Labour Party under Keir Starmer. That's the Labour Party here in Birmingham.
What do you think about the independents?
They're good on Palestine, but they're a bit of a clown show, and there's lots of egos there, and also they're not very progressive. You know, some of them have been saying, oh, you know, we side with the people who hate migrants, who hate refugees, and also they're quite homophobic. And I've spoken to Shaquille and Ahmed. I've been on protest with them, and I've said, look, I'm going to, you know, shake out, I'm going to link arms with you when you're fighting for Palestine, but don't go down a homophobe. You don't need to. Why are you doing this, right? And if you do, then we're going to pick up where we left off and have a battle about it.
So you're going to vote for the local elections?
I'm going to have a look, but in my opinion, it doesn't matter because you got soldiers, workers, and the elite. The soldiers and the workers feed the elite, and that's the end of the story.
Well, that's quite a left-wing thing to say, isn't it? You might vote for Labour, the Greens, or an independent.
Might do the Green.
Might do the Greens. Yeah. Why not Labour?
Like I said, nothing changes. So
what about reform? They want to change stuff.
They ain't going to change fuck all, mate.
Get Labour in, tax, tell you what to do. That's it. That's a Labour government for you. That's it. Conservative government, just piffy-poffy about, man, nothing happens.
My local council's a pretty good guy. I've got his number. If I message him, he gets back to me. But Labour have to be punished. I don't think Green are ever going to come to power. What they can do is they can have a Nigel Farage effect where they can shift the Labour Party to the left. So if Green get a big enough momentum, they're going to frighten Labour, they're going to ditch Starmer and put somebody in more left wing. And in a sense, that is a result.
So we've just got back to London. What have we learned? We're looking at 6 parties competitive in a range of wards. And that kind of underscores a major point for me, which is nobody really knows what's going to happen after May 7th. Nobody. One thing we can be very certain of is that Labour are losing Muslim votes on so many issues, not just Gaza, not just foreign policy, on domestic policy, on how the parties perform locally in Birmingham, but also nationally with Keir Starmer. We saw the same thing with Wales, right? And a sense that the local Labour machine was complacent, that it took a community for granted. Again, we keep hearing that, don't we? In 2019, voters leave Labour, they go to the Tories because they feel taken for granted. Now we're seeing it in Wales, we've seen it in Scotland. We may see it in London as well, with voters going towards the Greens. Alongside the collapse of the Muslim vote for Labour is something that really surprised me today. And that was 2 British Muslims, Salma Yaqub and Ahmed Yaqub, not related, saying that actually they aren't beneficiaries of the biradari system, they're fighting against it. That is not something you will hear in the media. The line will be, with the full support of the Tory and the Labour parties, this is sectarian, it's new, we've never seen this before. But what those guys said is actually no. That's what we had. You had block voting, and as long as it served the Labour Party, nobody said anything. It was fine. But the minute that Muslims don't vote for Labour and they vote for the Greens or they vote for independents, then all of a sudden it's block voting and we have to stop it. I was shocked to learn that Salma Yaqub doesn't actually agree with postal votes. I didn't know that. She's saying something which, please forgive me, Salma, she's saying something that Nigel Farage agrees with. Now, back to the idea of complacency and it being a universal feeling in British politics. Everybody feels that the political class is complacent and that they're taken for granted. That is the set of conditions that creates the vacuum into which people like Nigel Farage, Ahmed Yaqub, Zach Polanski step into. Plaid Cymru, to a lesser extent, the SNP, historically. So when you get the political media class saying, oh my God, how did we end up with Zach Polanski and Ahmed Yaqub and Nigel Farage? Because of you, actually. because of the politics that you wanted. So when you see people on the BBC or in the papers saying, where did Ahmed Yaqub come from? He came from you. He's a response to the world that you created. On a positive note, yes, people are fighting in Birmingham. Not literally, although you might get there. And of course that's a bad thing, people are fighting in a way. But also it's maybe a good thing. They're fighting. They want something different. They believe in something. The apathy is over. But here's the point. We can talk about the end of the two-party system. We can talk about newcomers. We can talk about insurgents. And that's super interesting ahead of May 7th. But if you have 4, 5, 6 parties on Birmingham City Council with a decent number of councillors on May the 8th, May the 9th, what happens then? We've been talking about a collapse of the political system, the two-party system, for a long time. In Birmingham and in Wales, it's happening. We don't need to talk about it anymore. The real question is, what comes next?